Imagine standing in the heart of ancient Rome, 2,000 years ago. The sun beats down on marble temples and crowded streets. 1 million people live within these walls. They drink fresh water. They bathe in public fountains. They wash their clothes and fill their cups without ever wondering where this miracle comes from. But somewhere beyond the city, high in the mountains, something extraordinary is happening. Water is flowing uphill. It is crossing valleys. It is traveling through tunnels carved into solid rock. And it will arrive in Rome as if by magic, carried by structures so perfectly engineered that modern scientists still struggle to fully understand them. This is the story of the Roman aqueducts. This is the tale of how an ancient civilization conquered nature itself. And this is how artificial intelligence is now helping us reconstruct and comprehend one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements. The year is 312 BCE. Rome is no longer a small village on the banks of the Tiber. It is a growing power, swallowing up territories across the Italian peninsula. But with growth comes a problem no army can solve. The Tiber River is polluted. Wells are running dry. Disease spreads through cramped neighborhoods where people drink whatever water they can find. Rome is choking on its own success. A man named Appius Claudius decides to change everything. He is blind, some say, but his vision extends far beyond what ordinary men can see. He orders the construction of the first great aqueduct, the Aqua Appia. Workers begin digging. They tunnel through 11 miles of rock and earth, most of it underground, to protect the precious water from enemies and contamination. They use simple tools, bronze picks, wooden scaffolds, human muscle and determination. The work takes years. Men die in collapsed tunnels. Others spend their entire lives underground, never seeing the water they are fighting to deliver. But when the Aqua Appia is finally complete, something miraculous happens. Fresh, clean water flows into Rome from springs located miles away. Citizens gather at the new fountain in the Forum Boreum, watching in amazement as crystal clear water pours endlessly from stone spouts. They do not understand the engineering behind this miracle. To many of them, it seems like the work of the gods. What they cannot know is that this is only the beginning. Over the next 5 centuries, Rome will build 11 major aqueducts. Together, they will stretch for over 300 miles. They will carry nearly 300 million gallons of water into the city every single day. And they will transform not just Rome, but the very concept of what human civilization can achieve. The engineering behind these structures defies comprehension even today. Roman engineers understood something that seems almost impossible without modern mathematics. They knew that water flows downhill. But they also knew that if you calculate the slope precisely, if you maintain a perfect gradient across hundreds of miles, water will flow exactly where you want it to go. The average slope of a Roman aqueduct was just 1 foot of drop for every 200 feet of distance. This means that over a mile, the channel would descend by only 26 feet. Any steeper, and the water would flow too fast, eroding the stone channels. Any gentler, and it would stagnate and stop. How did they achieve this precision without modern surveying equipment? They used an instrument called the groma, a simple cross-shaped tool hung with plumb lines. They used the corrugates, a long wooden frame with water troughs that acted as a level. They took measurements at night when the air was still, reducing distortion from heat waves. They worked in teams, one group taking readings while another planted markers in the distance. And they did this across mountains, through valleys, and around obstacles that would challenge modern engineers with satellites and computers. But here is where our story takes a remarkable turn. For 2,000 years, we have studied the Roman aqueducts through excavation, through ancient texts, through the fragments and ruins that still dot the landscape around Rome. We have pieced together their construction methods. We have marveled at their durability, but we have never been able to see them as the Romans saw them. We have never fully understood how all the pieces fit together, until now. In laboratories around the world, researchers are using artificial intelligence to reconstruct these ancient wonders in ways that were impossible just a decade ago. They are feeding centuries of archaeological data into machine learning algorithms. They are scanning existing ruins with lasers that capture every crack and every curve. They are teaching computers to think like Roman engineers, to understand the logic behind decisions made 2 millennia ago. The results are astonishing. At the University of Rome, a team has used AI to reconstruct the Aqua Claudia in complete digital detail. This aqueduct, built by the Emperor Claudius in 52 CE, stretched for 43 miles and included 10 miles of soaring arched bridges. For centuries, we could only guess at what the complete structure looked like. Now, artificial intelligence has filled in the gaps. It has analyzed the surviving sections, learned the patterns of Roman construction, and generated a complete 3-dimensional model that shows us the Aqua Claudia as it appeared at the height of the Roman Empire. But AI is doing more than just creating pretty pictures. It is answering questions that have puzzled historians for generations. Consider the mystery of the Pont du Gard, the famous aqueduct bridge in southern France. This structure rises 160 feet above the Garden River, carrying water across a valley on 3 tiers of precisely fitted stone arches. For years, engineers wondered how the Romans achieved such stability without mortar in the upper sections. The stones are simply stacked, held together by nothing but their own weight and perfect geometry. AI analysis has finally provided an answer. By running millions of simulations, testing different arrangements and stress patterns, researchers discovered that the Romans used a technique called corbelling, offsetting each layer of stone slightly to distribute weight across a wider area. The AI also found evidence that the Romans deliberately varied the size of the stones based on their position in the structure, using larger blocks where stress was greatest. This level of sophisticated engineering was invisible to human observers. It took artificial intelligence to see the hidden genius in the ancient stonework. Perhaps even more remarkable is what AI has revealed about the water itself. Roman engineers did not simply transport water, they transformed it. Along the length of each aqueduct, they built settling tanks where sediment could fall to the bottom. They constructed filters using layers of sand and gravel. They even added calcium carbide deposits to the channel walls, knowing that the minerals would help purify the water as it flowed past. How did they discover these techniques? We do not know for certain. But AI analysis of ancient residues found inside aqueduct channels suggests that Roman engineers conducted experiments, testing different materials and methods over generations. The aqueducts were not built according to a single master plan. They evolved, each generation learning from the last, passing down knowledge through an unbroken chain of practical wisdom. The genius of Roman water engineering extended far beyond the aqueducts themselves. Once water arrived in Rome, it entered an incredibly complex distribution system. Massive lead pipes carried water beneath the streets. Stone cisterns stored reserves for times of shortage. Decorative fountains served as both public utilities and works of art. The baths of Caracalla alone used over 2 million gallons of water every day, heated by massive furnaces that required an engineering marvel of their own. AI reconstruction has mapped this entire system for the first time. Using ground-penetrating radar data combined with historical records, researchers have created a complete digital model of Rome's water infrastructure. At its peak around 300 CE, the model reveals something stunning. Rome had a more reliable water supply than many modern cities. The average Roman citizen had access to more water per day than the average resident of New York City today. And this was achieved without electricity, without pumps, without any of the technology we consider essential to modern life. But empires fall, and the aqueducts fell with Rome. When barbarian armies swept into Italy in the 5th century, they did not need to breach Rome's walls. They simply cut the aqueducts. Within days, a city of 1 million people had no water. Fountains ran dry. Baths closed. People crowded around the polluted Tiber, drinking water that made them sick. The population collapsed. Within a generation, Rome shrank from a metropolis to a town of 30,000 people huddled among ruins they no longer understood. The aqueducts crumbled. Their arches collapsed. Their channels filled with debris. For over 1,000 years, they stood as silent monuments to a lost age, their secrets seemingly gone forever. But now, AI is bringing them back to life, not just as historical curiosities, but as practical engineering lessons. In Spain, engineers are using AI-reconstructed Roman designs to build new water systems for rural communities. In Tunisia, archaeologists are using machine learning to locate buried sections of Roman aqueducts that could be restored to provide irrigation for drought-stricken farms. In California, water management officials are studying AI models of Roman settling tanks, looking for ancient solutions to modern problems of sediment and pollution. The Romans understood something we are only now remembering. They knew that water is not just a resource. It is the foundation of civilization itself. Without clean, reliable water, cities cannot exist. Societies cannot flourish. Human potential cannot be realized. 2,000 years ago, engineers with bronze tools and wooden frames built structures that still stand today. They calculated gradients with homemade levels. They carved tunnels through mountains with picks and hammers. They created a water system that served 1 million people without a single electric pump. And now, artificial intelligence is helping us see their achievement with new eyes. It is showing us not just what the Romans built, but how they thought. It is revealing engineering principles that remained hidden for centuries. It is connecting us across 2 millennia with people who faced the same challenges we face today. The Roman aqueducts were never just about water. They were about human ambition. They were about the belief that problems can be solved, that nature can be understood, that the impossible can become routine. They were about looking at a mountain and seeing not an obstacle, but an opportunity. When you look at the ruins of an ancient aqueduct, you are looking at a message from the past. You are seeing proof that human beings, working together across generations, can achieve wonders that seem like miracles. You are witnessing the power of engineering, the triumph of knowledge, the enduring legacy of people who refused to accept the world as they found it. The water stopped flowing 2,000 years ago, but the lessons never stopped. And now, with the help of artificial intelligence, those lessons are flowing once again, carrying ancient wisdom into a future that desperately needs to remember what human beings can accomplish when they dream without limits. The arches still stand. The channels still trace their paths across the landscape. And somewhere in a laboratory, a computer is learning to think like a Roman engineer, proving that the greatest achievements of the past are not lost. They are waiting to be reconstructed, waiting to be understood, waiting to inspire a new generation to look at the impossible and see only another problem to solve. The Roman aqueducts remind us that civilizations are built not on conquest, but on cooperation. Not on weapons, but on water. Not on the power to destroy, but on the wisdom to create. And perhaps that is the most important lesson of all.